What's up YouTube? I'm back with a video about the Arcade1up cabinets. In this video I'm going to talk about a control panel I found on Amazon that will allow you to use not only the Raspberry Pi but all your mini consoles that have come out in the last few years, and also the Switch. So I'll show you what I've found and I'll leave links in the bio. This is it. It's the Switch Fight Stick for Arcade1up by Intec Gaming. I found this with a bundle that comes with two wireless controller adapters that allow you to connect it to the NES Mini, the Super NES Mini, and all those mini consoles that have come out in the last few years. But it also comes with USB, so you can use it with the Raspberry Pi and have RetroPie on it. So I'll show you those next. So these are the wireless adapters. As you can see, on one side they're USB, and on the other end they have the connector for the Nintendo. So you can use it with multiple devices, but for this setup I'm going to use my Raspberry Pi 3B Plus with a flirt case. So this is what you get in the bundle. It comes with an HDMI cable. It comes with the adapter for the back of the Arcade1ups to allow you to have both HDMI and power with the ribbon cable. And this one also comes with two wireless controllers, adapters anyway, to allow you to connect to your different devices. So one of the problems I was having is there's no good way to turn off a Raspberry Pi with their normal power supplies. So I went on Amazon and I picked up this one with the Switch. The Switch is pretty heavy duty, so I'm going to integrate that into the project. But let it be known that to shut down the Raspberry Pi in the correct manner, you want to do it from the RetroPie menu system. Shut it down there first and then turn off the power. So for this project I decided to sacrifice the Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition cabinet. I'm going to replace its control panel, and I'll show you at the end where I store the control panel afterwards. I think it fits pretty well. And that way, if I choose to go back to the original cabinet, I still can. So this is very non-invasive. So for my arcade area, one of the things I decided to do was have all of the power supplies connected in the middle machine underneath of it. And for this project, I'm going to want an extension cable to run for the Raspberry Pi. So I have this extension cable, and I'm going to plug it into one of the outlets here to run that. So to start with, we're going to want to take the back of this panel off so that we can get to the back of the monitor. So the first thing we're going to want to do is take off this back plate that contains the computer for the actual Arcade1up, the original, and remove the ribbon cable. After that, we're going to keep the power supply, the power plug, and we're going to plug it into the new unit that goes on the back, and I'll show you how that's done step by step here. First of all, we want to remove the power plug. So we have that separate. Then we can remove the ribbon cable from the control panel, as you see here. And then this plate only has two screws on the back, and I believe we want to keep these to reuse on the other. So there's one. And without light, of course it's hard to see. So that's the first step. Of course, make sure you find your screws when you're done. You should have 2 screws. I set them aside. And then if you turn this around, you can see there's a couple plugs plugged into it, and you have a wire for ground. So you want to remove the ground. Might need a smaller screwdriver. Nope, this one works just fine. Make sure you don't lose that screw also. Keep that. And then remember the direction that these are plugged into. Red is on the left on this one, and black is to the left on this one. So you just wiggle gently back and forth and try not to pull the wires out, because it's really hard to grab the plastic there. Try not to bend anything. And there you go. This part's removed. Now we're going to save this, because if I ever want to turn this back into the original cabinet, then I'll still have it. Now for the new panel, you can see that there's some instructions here about the direction to plug that wire back in, and the red goes to the left. The other wire will plug in right here, and then your ribbon cable plugs in here. Now the hard part is finding a spot for your ground wire, which I usually just put in this part when I screw it down. So I'll show you that next. Also on this board here, you can see over here there's some dip switches. In the manual it tells you what those do. They are different for each screen, so you can play around with them and make sure you get the best picture for your device. Here's the part in the manual that describes what the switches do. So I believe for the older monitors that are in these screens, A is what you want on the top, and then aspect ratio full screen, I believe, is what you want for the bottom. But we'll play around with that and I'll show you what they do here in a minute. So the white cable that I showed before, or I don't know if you could see it very well now that I'm looking at that, will plug in here from this angle. There's only one way to put that in. You can see the ribbon cable here. There's only one correct way to put that in. So the only one you have to worry about, which is listed on this sheet here, is this pin header, where the red goes to the left. So we'll do that now. Okay, I got the box all hooked up, and now I'm going to remove the control panel and replace it, and then we can start testing. So for this step, you just want to remove the 4 screws. There's 2 on each side, and then you can remove the control panel. Now for this particular machine, I added these longer controls hoppers, and I'm probably going to keep those and switch them out to the new one. So just remove all 4 screws, and you should be able to just pull this right out. Remember to keep these screws and remember where they're at, because you're going to use them for the other control panel. And then this comes right out. There you go. Remove this one and replace it with this one. Just like that. Very easy. To connect the cables, you're going to want your HDMI cable. Pull that out of the bag, pull the tips off, the plastic covers. And these HDMI cables are nice and long, really high quality. and you'll take your control panel, and you see on the back there's a spot for the ribbon cable and a spot for the HDMI cable. Of course, there's two USB ports also. This could be used standalone to control another device. So let's plug everything up and then put it back in. I'm sorry, the HDMI cable goes to the back of the control panel only. It's not needed here. The only thing we need to connect here is the ribbon cable. So you can pull the ribbon cable up from the back. It only goes in one direction. So if it doesn't fit one way, try it the other way. Plug it into the location that I showed you before. And that's it for the control panel. Now I'll show you how to plug in the HDMI and hook up the Raspberry Pi. So my plan for this project is to use this HDMI cable and come out through a hole that's in the back of the panel and connect the Raspberry Pi to the top plate up here with Velcro. That way I can remove the SD card if I need to and get to it easy without taking off the back, because of the way I have things set up. Of course, you can do it however it works for you. But you'll see on the bottom of these, there's an HDMI port. Plug that in. Of course, only one direction works, so if you get it in right, you get it in right. And then the remote adapters come with cords to make them longer, which you'll need for a Raspberry Pi because these big devices don't fit next to each other very well in these ports. So you'll see I already have them hooked up. So all you need to do is hook the HDMI port up to this port, and you will get both sound and video from that. What I didn't mention earlier is that these control panels have stereo speakers. There's two speakers inside. Now you can decide from here where to place your Raspberry Pi. What I thought about doing at one point was, as you see, there's a board over here and there's a board on the opposite side. You could build a shelf there to hold everything. Some people just stick it to the side, but like I said, I'm going to run it and stick it into the top. So after testing, I'll rewire everything and do it that way. Okay, once you get everything powered on, you can see that there's a light that's on the panel here. I had already set up my wireless adapters to sync, but the light that's turned on is the button you'll push to sync your adapters. I suggest getting everything synced up before you close up the cabinet. And then you can see that the screen's on and it's working and it's full screen. Looks pretty good. I'm going to turn it off and mess with the switches on the back, and we'll see what the difference is. So like I said before, what you'll want to do is shut down the machine from Raspberry Pi. So you'll click this button here. This is your start button. For me, you have to go through the setup process. You can configure input here. And you want to quit, shut down system, yes. So once the system's shut down, you can turn the power off here, and then you want to turn the power off on your Raspberry Pi. So I'm going to show you what it looks like when this boots up. First, I'm going to turn on the controller, which also turns on the monitor. And then I'm going to turn on the Raspberry Pi. Make sure that the volume's turned on. That looks to me. Okay, so I changed the switch on the back panel to for the top switch to B. And B seemed to clear up the problem I was having with the monitor. Maybe this is one of the newer monitors. So now instead of having the artifacts at the bottom where it looked like the screen was wrapping around, that's gone. And I'm pretty happy with where this is right now. And you can see there's all kinds of different game systems in here. So I'm gonna play one of the games just to see what it looks like on the screen, just to make sure that it's where I want it to be. Give it just a second to load up here. And as you can see on these games, they have the side panels. Let's see. The game's starting up here. You can see there's side overlays on each side. There's a button combination you can push. And I always forget which ones I have to push to get in there. I think it's select in one of these buttons. That looks like reset. Okay, so once you come into this menu, then you can go down to screen overlay and turn that off. And I'm going to look in later, I'm going to look into how to shut this off all the time, because I really don't like it in this screen format. It's not needed. So then you go back, go to resume, and you can see you got the full screen game going there. You can play it, press start, get into the game. Now right now I'm having an issue I just noticed where I don't have sound for this game. I'm not really sure why. I'll have to play around with that and figure that out. But it looks exactly like what I want this to look like. It takes up the full screen, 4x3 format, and it looks really good. Okay, I restarted the game system and I have sound in the menus now. So I'm going to try this game again to see if I have sound in the game. So yes, now I have sound in the game. Like I said, I got to look through the menu system and find out how to shut off these overlays so that they don't come up every time. So I'll look through here and find out how to shut that off for all the games, because I really don't want that coming up. This looks great, so I'm going to button everything up, put the screws back in the control panel, put the back on, and I'll be ready to play. So in this video I'm just going to show the setup, which I've already been through, and on the next I will show gameplay. So I've dusted and cleaned off this side with some rubbing alcohol, and I'm going to use Velcro to attach the Raspberry Pi, because I think that'd be the best way for me to be able to get it on and off the back of this thing without having to move the cabinet all the time. So I'm going to do that and then I'll be right back. So here it is mounted onto the back of the Arcade1up, and you can see I let the dongles drip down just a little bit in the back, hoping those would get it closer to the control panel. Plus it just works out better for the device. And from here on the top, I can get to the SD card easily. The HDMI will plug in on the side and the power, and I can have the power switch up on the top too, so I can just reach over and turn it on and off. So I'll show you what that looks like next. So here's what it looks like all hooked up. I'm trying to decide if I'm going to run this power cable in through the back, but you can see this hole is big enough for the HDMI cable to come right out and plug into the Raspberry Pi. And I'm thinking I might decide to mount this with some either double-sided tape or possibly Velcro right here so that I can switch it on and off real easy. So that'll be next. So here the switch is mounted, and what I decided to do is leave a little bit of slack on this side just to give it a little relief, and then use a twist tie to the HDMI cable to give it a little bit more relief, because I've decided to leave this on the outside and anytime I need to remove it, I can without removing the back. So that's going to be how this project is completed. And of course, as like earlier, it'll be this white extension cord that plugs into it and runs up the back with the other cables. So here's the secret I told you that I'd show you at the end. So the original controller and everything else fits back inside this box, and so about the same size. And what I'm going to do is stick it in the back of the machine before I seal it up, and then it's already there and ready for me next time if I decide to put things back together to the original standards. So this box will fit in there just right. I'm going to stop and put it in there, and then I'll show you. You can see it fits in there just fine. You know, as long as, like me, I never move these machines. As long as you're not wobbling it around, it should be fine. Once I put it in, of course. But that's it. I'm going to button it up, and then we're finished with this video. One thing I forgot to mention is that with these remotes, you want all the switches up, which is PC mode, to use with the Raspberry Pi. Of course, don't forget to take off the plastic protection on the plastic overlay. And this is the one that I chose to go with, was Galega, but there's a whole group of different ones you can go with. But I thought this looked pretty sharp. And in my next video, I'm going to talk about the Sega Genesis version of this. So stay tuned.